Wondrous stories of Saint Haralambos, skull of the saint. The most holy relics of Saint Haralambos have been distributed for the sake of reverence everywhere to Orthodox Christians. The relics have the grace and power to help, heal, and defend believers with countless miracles even today. The saint is particularly acclaimed as the protector and guardian against all types of plagues and virus strains. Those who trust in him neither become carriers nor are infected. The holy skull of Saint Haralambos is found today at the holy monastery of Saint Stephen the Proto-Martyr, a convent at Meteora in Thessaly, Greece. One such miracle occurred in 1812 when a devastation of the plague made many ill throughout Epirus. Then someone named Molossos, the father of Zotu Molosso, who wrote a dictionary of saints, went to Meteora and brought to Epirus the skull of Saint Haralambos and ended the plague and many deaths. The Greco-Turkish War took place in 1897. The Turks managed at that time to steal the Holy Skull, yet after hitting the silver reliquary 1,000 different ways to bust it open to take only the expensive reliquary, their efforts failed. Instead, a great sickness befell the Turks. 35,000 Turks died of typhoid in Thessaly by a miracle of the saint. When the Sultan heard how great a number in his army died in Thessaly, he wrote to the commander of the Turkish army in Thessaly, Edom, the following question in a letter. How did we lose so many soldiers in Thessaly if we have not yet gone to battle with the Greeks? Edom responded, As many Turks who ruined churches and monasteries died of typhoid, I could not prevent the hand of God. All the Turks died horribly. Epidemic on Mount Athos. Saint Haralambos has a special gift of healing pestilential diseases and has often halted epidemics of typhus, cholera, and the plague. In 1908, a deadly epidemic reached Mount Athos, and the holy skull of the saint was taken from St. Stephen's Monastery on Meteora to the Prototon on Mount Athos, where an all-night vigil was served. The epidemic halted immediately, and since then, each year, the monasteries celebrate an all-night vigil honoring Saint Haralambos, the only saint besides the Mother of God to be so honored by the entire population of the Holy Mountain. During the Second World War, the Nazis invaded the country of Greece. A certain Nazi captain who took over Pyrgos village had orders from a higher-up Nazi to blow up the whole village in a few days. The orders were coming from yet another higher-up Nazi, who was about 50 kilometers away from the village. The local villagers found out about it and feared for what was to happen. Being that the patron saint of their village was Saint Haralambos, the villagers decided to go to church at night and pray to him. The next night, the captain who had orders for the catastrophe had a dream. He dreamed that an old man with a long beard approached him and said, "What you are thinking of doing to this village, don't do it or you will be sorry." He woke up startled and frightened, but he thought it was only a dream. Again, the next night the same thing happened as Saint Haralambos appeared to him in his dream saying, "Do you think that this is a dream? I'll tell you for the last time, don't do it." Again awakened with fear, he decided to let his superior know. Although scared that he might be rejected, he called his superior and told him everything about his dreams. The superior was in silence for a few minutes and then asked him, "Was the old man with a long beard?" "Yes," he replied. The superior said to the captain, "I'm coming over there, because that old man came to me too." The superior came, and together with the captain, wanted to know who the old man was. Upon going into the church to ask the priest about it, all of a sudden, they noticed the icon of Saint Haralambos. They screamed out, "Who is this man, and where is he now?" The priest replied, "That is Saint Haralambos, and he has been dead for over 1,000 years. Being in huge fear and panic, they both decided not to destroy the village. After this incident, one of the Nazis kept coming back to Greece for the feast day of Saint Haralambos to venerate and pray to him. Maria's child. In 1950, Maria Nairi's 4-year-old daughter became paralyzed. Unable to help her, the doctors could do nothing for the child and sent her home to die. After many nights of prayer, Maria saw Saint Haralambos in a dream, and borrowing an icon of him from her church, kept it in her home for 40 days, with a lamp lit before it. On the eve of the Feast of the Holy Apostles, June 30th, the saint appeared to the child and healed her. The room was filled with an indescribable fragrance, and sweet-smelling myrrh flowed from the icon. A year without speech. On the west coast of Greece, there is a church dedicated to the saint in thanksgiving for saving the town from a typhoid epidemic. One year, St. Haralambos' feast fell in the week before Great Lent. In Greece, as in other parts of the world, this week is often celebrated with a secular carnival. A couple, who were passing by the church on the eve of the saint's feast, heard the singing for the vigil. The wife wanted to go in for the service, but the husband blasphemed the saint and said that he would go to the carnival instead. He was immediately stricken dumb. His wife took him into the church where he knelt and repented, and he regained his speech exactly a year later on the feast of St. Haralambos. Message from the saint. A man with an incurable and extremely painful disease prayed to St. Haralambos frequently and fervently to heal him. Finally, one night the saint appeared and told him that his sufferings were much less than those endured by Christ, and that it would be better for him to bear his illness patiently than to have it cured, because it had been sent by God to help him work out his salvation. Life savings. In 1966, a Mr. Nicolaou was returning to his native village where he planned to retire, carrying with him his life savings. Reaching his village, he was horrified to discover he had lost the money. The next morning, he set off again for Piraeus, hoping somehow to trace it. When he reached the village of Palygorgos, he saw a small chapel dedicated to Saint Haralambos and went in to beseech his aid. Immediately he heard a voice telling him to look under the seat of the car in which he had ridden partway home the day before. He traced the car and found that the money had indeed fallen under the seat. The monastery priest. In the early 1990s, a young man from the village in the area came to St. Stephen's Monastery with the intent to commit suicide by throwing himself off the bridge that connects the pinnacle of the rock to the road. He was standing on the bridge looking down into the chasm and preparing to jump, when an old priest came up and introduced himself as the spiritual father of the monastery. Although they had never met before, he began speaking to the young man about his life and trials and encouraged him not to despair, promising him that God would help him. The young man felt an inner joy and peace. Going back to his home, he began to attend divine liturgy regularly. A few weeks later, he went to the monastery again and asked to speak to the old priest. The sister whom he met at the door told him there was no priest living there, that priests only came occasionally from the outside to serve divine liturgy, nor had there been any priest there on the day he mentioned. She asked him what the old priest had looked like, and he described in detail Saint Haralambos. The twins. In January 1995, a woman came to visit the monastery from the town of Trikala, Greece, and told the sisters, nuns, that she had been childless for the first 19 years of her marriage, and that doctors had told her she would never conceive. At the beginning of 1994, she began praying to Saint Haralambos, who appeared to her one night in a dream and said not, "You will have a child," but "You will have children." 2 months later, the woman conceived and at the end of the year gave birth to twin boys. She came often to visit the monastery with her little sons. The following was the final prayer of Saint Haralambos. If it please thy goodness to ask a gift of thee, I beseech thy majesty and dominion to grant this favor, to whomsoever should find or possess a portion of my relics, and in whichsoever land he may be celebrating the memory of my martyrdom, may he never suffer from hunger or plague or pestilence or an untimely death or destruction from an evil man or injury to crops. I pray that he may be firm in peace, salvation of soul, and health of body. I entreat that he enjoy plenty of wheat, oil, and wine, together with an abundance of livestock and other good and useful possessions.